Breaking news from around your world on this Tuesday, June 18th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. A powerful earthquake jolted northwestern Japan late Tuesday, prompting officials to issue a tsunami warning along the coast, which was lifted about 2.5 hours later. Thousands of families lost electrical power and bullet train services were suspended, but there were no reports of serious injuries or damage from the magnitude 6.7 quake. Japan's Meteorological Agency said the earthquake was located off the western coast of Yamagata, about 50 kilometers southwest of the city of Sakata. It said the quake was fairly shallow, about 9 miles below the sea's surface. The agency warned of a possible tsunami up to 1 meter high, but only a minor swelling of the sea was observed in several cities about a half hour after the earthquake struck. More than 1,500 people took shelter at evacuation centers in Murakami City and elsewhere in Niigata. Bullet train service was suspended in parts of the region because of power outages and for safety checks. About 9,000 households lost power. An emergency response team was set up at Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's office to assess the extent of injuries and damage. Meanwhile, that large earthquake that hit China Monday night claimed the lives of nearly a dozen people, and more than 100 more were injured. Government officials said 11 people died and 122 were hurt in Changning and Gongshan counties. The magnitude 5.8 quake struck Yibin County in the Chinese province of Sichuan at 10:55 p.m. local time, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The USGS added that extensive damage was probable and a disaster is likely widespread as a result of that Chinese quake. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan has withdrawn from consideration to head the U.S. military, stoking uncertainty about the leadership of the Pentagon at a moment of rising tension with Iran. President Donald Trump made the announcement Tuesday via Twitter and said the Secretary of the Army, Mark Esper, will be named as the new acting defense secretary. Esper had been considered a leading contender for the job if Shanahan was ultimately not confirmed. The former Boeing executive did not have prior experience in national security matters before he was picked by then Defense Secretary Jim Mattis to be his deputy. Shanahan had been in the job in an acting capacity since Mattis stepped down at the end of 2018. The Pentagon announced it will send more than 1,000 additional U.S. troops to the Middle East after recent attacks on oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman have increased tensions between the U.S. and Iran. U.S. Central Command Chief General Frank McKenzie requested the deployment, which comes after 1,500 troops were sent to the region late last month after similar attacks took place. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan said the recent hostile behavior of Iranian forces threatened U.S. personnel and interests in the region. The U.S. has implicated Iran in last week's attacks, but Iran continues to deny having any involvement, saying the accusations are unfounded. 4 people were shot Monday at a rally in Toronto celebrating the Raptors' first ever NBA championship. Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders said 4 people suffered non-life-threatening gunshot wounds, and an unknown number of people suffered minor injuries from attempts to flee the shooting. Police arrested 3 people and recovered 2 firearms after the attack, but they did not say whether they think the shooting was a targeted incident or an act of terrorism. The attack occurred near Nathan Phillips Square while Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Toronto's mayor, and the Raptors players were on stage. 1 million fans were in attendance. Saunders said of the incident, the vast majority didn't even know this happened. The United States announced Monday evening it will follow through with supplying $432 million in previously approved funding to El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, backtracking on a statement made hours earlier that it would cut off aid to the 3 Central American countries. The Trump administration previously said it would be cutting more than $615 million in aid in order to send a message about the migrant border crisis. But after reviewing the cuts, the State Department agreed to go ahead with the money that had already been approved by Congress. The funds, which come from the 2017 budget, will be spent on health, education, and poverty alleviation programs, as well as anti-crime efforts that could potentially lessen migrant outflows. Many lawmakers argued against Trump's decision to cut funding, saying it wouldn't do anything to slow down migration numbers. China said it will halt imports from a Canadian company after food safety issues were detected in one batch of pork, a move likely to fuel speculation that China is retaliating against Canada for arresting a Chinese tech executive. Canada arrested Huawei Chief Financial Officer Meng Wanzhou in December at the request of the U.S. Xinhua State News Agency reported that China also suspended the permits of 2 other Canadian pork importers and halted all new purchases of Canadian canola seeds. Xinhua News said customs authorities found traces of ractopamine, a feed additive banned in many countries, in pork products from Frigo Royal. It said China will suspend imports from Frigo Royal and also stop accepting health certificates issued by that company's veterinary officer. Ractopamine is known as a muscle drug that accelerates pigs' growth. While it is banned in China, Russia, and EU countries, it has been approved for use in the U.S. and Canada. Facebook unveiled an ambitious plan Tuesday to create a new digital currency similar to Bitcoin for global use, one that could drive more e-commerce on its services and boost advertising on its platforms. Facebook is launching its own global spanning currency with partners that include PayPal, Uber, Spotify, Visa, and MasterCard. The digital currency, called Libra, is scheduled to launch sometime in the next 6 to 12 months. Facebook hopes to raise as much as $1 billion from existing and future partners to support the effort. Company officials emphasized Libra as a way of sending money across borders without incurring significant fees, such as those charged by Western Union and other international money transfer services. Libra could also open up online commerce to huge numbers of people around the world who currently don't have bank accounts or credit cards. Facebook won't run Libra directly. Instead, the company and its partners are forming a nonprofit called the Libra Association, headquartered in Geneva, that will oversee the new currency and its use. Facebook said the association will be regulated by Swiss financial authorities. A 116-year-old Italian woman, who authorities say was the oldest person in Europe and the second oldest in the world, has died. The Italian news agency ANSA said Giuseppina Robucci died Tuesday in the southern Italian town of Poggio Imperiale, where she was born on March 20th, 1903. She lived 116 years and 90 days. Robert Young of the U.S.-based Gerontology Research Group said Robucci was the last European born in 1903. She was just 2 months younger than the current oldest living person, Kane Tanaka of Japan, who was born on January 2nd, 1903. Robucci is number 17 on the list of people who lived the longest lives. Known locally as Nonna Peppa, Robucci had 5 children, 9 grandchildren, and 16 great-grandchildren. ANSA said she ran a coffee bar with her husband for decades. And that's your update for this Tuesday, June 18th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for supporting this podcast and for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.